Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So as you know, Wednesday means it's Wild Card Wednesday here in Instant Deck Tech land, and today we're heading to Legacy for one of the more underused and underappreciated tribes, and that is Wizards. This is a deck I'm calling Wizards Lock because it's basically trying to turn its entire team of creatures into Force Spikes and Force Spike everything the opponent plays. Comes to us from SP Grinch, who took it to a top 32 finish at a recent Legacy Challenge on Magic Online, so congrats to SP Grinch on a super sweet deck. A quick reminder before we break down Wizards Lock for Legacy. If you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So Wizards Lock is kind of built around two wizards. We have two wizards that are kind of the focal point of the deck. They're very different, but they're both wizards and kind of facilitate the tribal plan. So number one is Patron Wizard. This is where we get the Wizard Lock from. 3 blue mana, you get a 2/2, not that exciting. However, you can tap a wizard you control to force spike a spell. Make opponent pay 1 mana or else it gets countered. So this is obviously really powerful if you get a bunch of wizards on the battlefield. If you can get 2, 3, 4 wizards, you just leave them all untapped. Whenever your opponent goes to cast anything, tap some wizards, counter it, tap some wizards, counter it. Basically just hard lock your opponent out of the game. Eventually you keep playing wizards, you're able to attack with some while still leaving up some wizards to tap to force spike, and just make it so your opponent really can't do anything. So Patron Wizard, kind of plan number one. All it really wants is us to get a bunch of wizards on the battlefield, and we just keep our opponent from playing Magic. The other key wizard is Vedalken Aethermage, which is a very weird card. Ignore the sliver text. Very unlikely that bouncing a sliver will ever be relevant. You never know, maybe we play against a 5-color sliver deck in Legacy. It could happen, but the big deal here is it's 3 mana wizard cycling. Discard the Aethermage. We get to tutor any wizard out of our deck, put it into our hand, which means we get to play a lot of one-of wizards that are good in specific situations. So this is kind of the other key piece of the deck. We want any wizard for Patron Wizard, but then Vedalken Aethermage lets us get specific wizards that are good in certain situations. The other kind of key pieces of the deck are our 4-of wizards. So we have a lot of 1-ofs that we'll talk about in a minute, but we do have a few 4 and 3-ofs, which are wizards we want kind of every time, all the time in our gameplay. So Dark Confidant gives us a wizard that gives us a steady source of card advantage, extra cards every turn, sitting on the battlefield to force spike with Patron Wizard. Curse Catcher and Sage of Epitar give us some 1-drop wizards that are actually super powerful. Curse Catcher is really sweet because it kind of turns into like a miscalculation. We can tap it to force spike with Patron Wizard and then sack it after tapping it to counter an instant or sorcery, unless the opponent pays 1. So that means it kind of costs our opponent 2 to resolve an instant or sorcery through a Curse Catcher with a Patron Wizard out. Sage of Epitar gives us the ability to just kind of reorder our library while also giving us a cheap wizard on the battlefield. It might not look like much, but when you remember, we're in a format with fetch lands, we're in a format with our shuffling wizard tutor effects, we can kind of use it to put the wizard we want on top of our deck and then shuffle away the rest so we're not drawing them with our fetch lands, with our Vedalken Aethermage, things like that. Then we have all of our 1-of wizards, which are our tutor targets for our Vedalken Aethermage. Grim Lavamancer is it Staticaster, give us way to kill creatures on the board. We can also go face with Grim Lavamancer to close out the game. Staticaster, great against like Lingering Souls, any token effects that are putting a bunch of creatures on the battlefield. Sower of Temptation, great against big things. Opponent reanimating Grizzlebrands, Emerkles, things like that. We can steal it with our Sower of Temptation. Vendilion Click doesn't really interact with the battlefield, but it lets us get something out of our opponent's hand. It's kind of our Thoughtseize wizard, so in a way it's kind of like removal in its own right. Then we have Voidmage Prodigy and Venser Shaper Savant, which let us interact with the stack. Voidmage Prodigy, we can sack our bad 1-mana wizards when they're not good anymore to essentially counterspell. It turns every wizard into a counterspell from the battlefield. 2 mana, sack it, counter a spell. We have so many wizards, it lets us lock our opponent even harder. And then Venser can take care of anything that slips through. Bouncing it back to our opponent's hand can also bounce spells on the stack, really powerful wizard. Then we have Master of Waves as our finishing wizard. Remember, our patron wizard, triple blue mana symbols. So eventually we tutor up our Master of Waves, we're going to have a ton of blue devotion, make a ton of elemental tokens, kill our opponent right away with all the tokens we have. Ether Vial is the other key piece of the deck. Lets us cheat all of our wizards into play at instant speed on the cheap, which makes our patron wizard much more impactful. It makes our Voidmage Prodigy much more impactful. Pay 2, tap it, put a Voidmage into play, counterspell something. So it lets us do all these tricks with our wizards that would otherwise be really hard since most of our wizards don't have flash. Force of Will and Daze give us just some legacy staple counter spells. Force of Will to stay alive against combo decks, Daze to kind of tax things a little bit. Then we have a couple of copies of Umezawa's Jitte as an equipment, great against creature decks if we run into elves or something like that. Way to keep the board clean against decks that can fight through our force spikes thanks to their mana, or just go wide in the early game before we can get the lock established. Jitte is our way to stay in those matchups. Mana base, we get a few spicy lands. Mutavault gives us another wizard, works with all of our wizard synergies. Riptide Laboratory is kind of a lock piece in its own right. We can bounce our Venser Shaper Savant back to our hand, play it again, bounce our Vedalken Click, use it again, reset our Sower of Temptations to steal a different creature. So lots of value bouncing our wizards there. And then Cavern of Souls to make sure our opponent can't counter any of our key wizards. Between 4 caverns and the Ether Vials, our deck doesn't care too much about counter spells. Then we just have a bunch of dual lands. Remember, we talked about the fetch lands as well being important for shuffling with Sage of Epitar, making sure it powers that up to the maximum, and some islands, along with a few original dual lands. In the sideboard, we get some more wizards. Meddling Mage for combo matchups to shut down specific spells. Yixa Jailer gives us some graveyard hate in wizard form, can always tutor it up when we need it. Another Vedalken Click is it Staticaster for matchups with Lingering Souls, Young Pyromancers, small creatures, go wide token decks. A ton of different graveyard hate. 2 Tormod Crypts, 2 Relic of Progenitus, 2 Surgical Extractions. We are not planning on losing to Dredge with this deck. Echoing Truth for some bounce value, and then Perish to deal with Tarmogoyfs, to deal with elves, other green creature decks, and that is Wizard Lock for Legacy. And that's our Instant Deck Tech for today, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.